We have a lot to cover in today's video, including the possibility that the Flyers and Blues are working on a blockbuster deal. Lots of other trade updates as well, including the Washington Capitals, Nashville Predators, Los Angeles Kings, and others. Plus, Jordan Staal and the Canes have solved their impasse, have a deal in place, and we have some other signings as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover here today. Lots of trade rumors going on. The trade market is certainly heating up. We've already had a few trades today. We might have more. There's lots of rumors out there in the hockey world, and we'll see what comes to be. But first, let's start with a few things that we do know for sure. We have a couple of signings to talk about, including the Carolina Hurricanes and their captain, Jordan Staal, coming to terms on a new contract. A few days ago, we had heard they were basically at an impasse. I'm not sure exactly what the issue was. I think it probably could have been a combination of total money maybe, because it ended up doing a 4-year deal. Now, for a player at the stage of Jordan Staal's career, that I think a lot of people might be a little surprised by the term, but maybe that's what they needed to do to bring the average annual value down a little bit in order to make things work from a team and camp perspective. The average annual value is only $2.9 million. So even though Jordan Staal, you could say he's obviously regressed a bit in his play. He's getting a little bit older, maybe not as much offensively as he used to, but he's still a really good two-way centerman who can take a lot of big matchups and do a really good job shutting them down. So very, very valuable player in that sense. Obviously brings a lot of leadership and intangibles to the Canes as well. So this should allow him to finish out his career as a Hurricane and get some a pretty team-friendly contract. The term might not be the greatest. We'll see if he can stay healthy. You know, it's not a ton of money per season, so it's workable. If they had to do a buyout in the final year or a trade with salary retention down the road, and at least it's not outrageous. So we'll see how this works out. But overall, like I said, a little bit of questionableness on the term, but the money is great for what he brings. I think this is a pretty good deal. He does have a form of a no-move clause. I believe it's a full no-move, but we're just waiting to confirm the exact language of the trade protection in his contract. I'll update the pinned comment down below if I learn anything further, but I believe at this point it's a full no-move clause for Jordan Staal. A few other signings along the way here. The St. Louis Blues have signed young defenseman Scott Perunovich. He gets a 1-year, one-way contract for $775,000. The former Hobey Baker winner, certainly a player that the Blues would like to see take a big step and get into the regular lineup at the NHL level. And I wonder if this might be a deal that's, that might affect other things. So, for example, the Blockbuster trade I mentioned that's being worked on between the Blues and the Flyers, I believe that there's at least one defenseman going out of the Blues lineup, maybe more. So it could create some space here for Perunovich, so we'll have to see about that. We'll talk about that here a little further in a few minutes. The Sabres have signed Joseph Ciccone. He gets a 1-year, two-way deal, $775 at the NHL level. And the Minnesota Wild have signed goalie Hunter Jones to a 1-year, two-way contract as well, $757 at the NHL level. And of course, he gets the regular minors salary in the American Hockey League. Now, as well, before we jump into the trade rumors, this is also, I want to take a moment and take a look at a day in hockey history. There's a lot of things actually have taken place on this day in hockey history. It's a common day around this time. We've had some NHL drafts. Sometimes there's some big trades leading up to the draft. It's usually a busy week in the NHL. If you look back, around anywhere from the 20th to the 28th, 29th, it's usually a busy time. But on this day in NHL hockey history was when we saw a trade that the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think, will deeply regret when they traded a prospect goaltender Tuukka Rask to the Boston Bruins for Andrew Raycroft. Of course, Raycroft at that point was still young into his career, but had a solid start, but never really materialize and really get back on track to being an all-star goaltender from there. And of course, Rask went on to eventually become the starting goaltender down the road for the Boston Bruins and had a wonderful career, lots of success, lots of playoff action, finals appearances. Obviously they won the Stanley Cup in 2011. Rask was not the starting goaltender at that point, but still, either way, it was a deal that worked out way, way, way better for Boston than Toronto, and I'm sure one they'd like to have back. Now, onto the trade section of the video. All kinds of things going on. Let's start first with what we know so far in a potential blockbuster trade that's brewing between the Flyers and the Blues. I'm hoping that the deal at this point will be done soon, but There will be a dedicated video to talk about the trade when it happens, but we don't know a lot. We know that one of the main centerpieces that started around was Flyers center Kevin Hayes. Now, we had heard a lot about him maybe going to Columbus, but of course we knew what the other moves that Columbus had made, getting a few defensemen, like Provorov, that this likely wasn't going to be in the cards anymore. There was likely no cap space, and this wasn't the direction they were going. They kind of changed their minds, even though that was speculated from the end of the season and the trade deadline. The Blues have been a team that's been mentioned as maybe being a landing spot for Hayes and a few other spots as well. But this is believed to be a pretty substantial deal with lots of pieces going back and forth on both sides. Now, from what we know, it could involve, this is just a little bit of speculation on my part, but based on the reports from a variety of NHL reporters, we're hearing from a lot of Flyer reporters like Anthony Sanfilippo, Anthony DeMarco. Obviously, there's your national reporters like Pierre LeBrun, Dave Pagnotta, and a few other, all kind of, Chris Johnston as well, chiming in on what's going down here. And essentially, it's believed that we could have pieces like Kevin Hayes, possibly Scott Laughton. I know the Blues were rumored to be one of the teams very interested in Laughton. Tony DeAngelo might be in the mix here as well. There's even some that say possibly Travis Sanheim. So like I said, when we say Blockbuster, we could have as many as 3 to 4 pieces on either side here with a lot of NHL roster players. This is not a case where there being a lot of different draft picks involved. Now, the Blues do have 3 first-round picks, including 2 that are late in the first round. They could have some of that maybe going to the Flyers. At this point, you have to think there is definitely have to be some money going back to Philly as well. It's believed that the holdup here is that there's a defenseman from St. Louis involved that has at least a form of a no-trade clause. Now, which is a lot of their blue line. You've got Torrey Krug, Justin Falk, Colton Parayko, and Marco Scandella and Nick Leddy all have a form, either a full move or a form of a modified no-trade. So it's hard to say which one it is. I would think a lot of people were speculating Krug. I don't know that I have a feeling it's not Krug. We'll see. I think it could be more likely Parayko. Maybe Scandella. Either way, one of those Blues defensemen are definitely in the mix there. Maybe a Kasperi Kapanen. I wonder about a guy like Jacob Arena. I know they were good pickups by the Blues late in the season. They signed him to a year extension. Maybe that's a better spot for them in Philly. The Blues are certainly looking to retool here. I don't know. I mean, we don't know the full package, the full details. There just appears to be at least 2 or 3, maybe as many as 4 roster players on the Flyer side, with at least a few on the Blues side. It's believed that they're going to work through this and get it done. That's where reporters are confident that it's not going to fall apart. But there's somebody not willing to waive a no-trade clause right now that's holding things up. So we'll have to wait and see, but stay tuned. There's a big deal in the works, and like I said, a lot of reporters are confident that it's going to get done, but some of the pieces in the deals might have to be adjusted. I know as I record this, about 7:30 Eastern time on Saturday night, all parties involved with the trade also hadn't been informed of the deal just yet. I know a lot of people are kind of sitting on Twitter, just refreshing, constantly waiting for things to pop up, but it's been quite some time now. It could happen tonight. It could end up happening tomorrow. It's difficult to say, but either way, it sounds like it's in the works and it's going to happen. This might take a little bit longer, but there'll be a video on the channel once it gets done, or we'll find out that it fell apart last minute, something like that. Other rumors out of Washington, players like Kuznetsov and Mantha, but heavily mentioned in the rumor mill. Now our indication is from the Washington media that they may not end up getting moved. And it's not necessarily because the Capitals didn't want to. Like in the case of Anthony Mantha, there's just not much interest. Unless they decide to do a buyout, which would impact their cap for 2 years instead of 1, because he's got 1 year left on his deal, that would be the only way he likely moves. I mean, you never know. Maybe something comes together, but right now they're saying the interest is just not there. So it's quite possible that he stays. And Kuznetsov, there's some talk that obviously we knew that there was a fractured relationship between he and the team, and it was probably best to finally move on. But a lot of people are saying, well, obviously with the Washington Capitals and their last coach being Peter Laviolette for the last 3 years, maybe that was part of the problem. And now that they have a new coach in Spencer Carberry, maybe it's best that they hang on to him and try to rejuvenate his career and see if a new coach can accomplish that. I mean, we'll see. Kuznetsov's a good player. I mean, certainly risky, but he comes with a big cap hit too. So both of those trades are going to be complicated. It's not easy to give away players and make trades with guys that are not performing up to their standards. So no big shocker that they're having difficulties. And we'll see. Now, this could also be kind of put out there as well by Washington management, trying to get the word out that, hey, maybe we're just going to keep them, which is basically a way of telling teams that their offers aren't good enough. And if they want to, get a deal done, they're going to have to increase the value. Now, in case of Mantha, maybe they're more focused on trying to move him without retaining salary. It's difficult to say, but at this point, we wouldn't be shocked if both those players stay put. Of course, one of the trades we saw earlier today was the LA Kings moving in defenseman Sean Durzi, who's making $1.7 million over to the Arizona Coyotes. There was a belief that obviously they're clearing cap space for maybe a bigger move to follow. The Los Angeles Kings are believed to be heavily looking for a top 6 forward, and there is belief they're definitely engaged in trade conversations with the Winnipeg Jets around Pierre-Luc Dubois. They've been one of the few teams mentioned that have been serious about acquiring him, that he might be a little bit more interested and serious with signing a longer-term deal with. Now, we don't know for sure that's going to be a signing trade, but there was belief before that Dubois had given a list of teams to the Jets that he would do a longer-term deal with, and that if they do a signing trade, obviously increases the return going back to Winnipeg. Some feel that there's a good chance that a player like Gabe Vilardi might be involved in that deal. At this point, the LA Kings have not engaged in contract extension talks, and he's a pending restricted free agent with arbitration rights, so that's kind of leaving some reporters to think that maybe they're holding off on that to let the new team negotiate the deal if he is indeed dealt. I know a player like Victor Arvidsson has also been mentioned before as being a potential cap casualty, you could say, to make room for a potential other player coming in. So it could be some combination of Vilardi. Maybe they add Arvidsson or do a different deal to create some more space. They have plenty of other young prospects that could intrigue the Winnipeg Jets. It wouldn't be shocking as well if Winnipeg also is busy elsewhere. So we know that the LA and PLD, maybe Montreal gets in there. I don't know if the Habs are that interested to pay a big price, though, for him, as much as they'd like to get him. I don't think they want to pay heavy price for it. So we'll see how that works out. I don't know how close that is. I don't think it's really anything that's imminent or anything like that. I think they're going to probably grind away at a PLD trade till we get closer to the draft. When it comes to Montreal, though, they're certainly believed to be in the mix, too. It's just that they weren't believed to be as interested in paying a big price tag. So we'll have to see when it comes to that. Also with Winnipeg, there's been some belief here that a team like Boston has been working on something big. I don't know. The Boston media keeps putting out these cryptic type messages through their Twitter accounts saying that they keep hearing that the Bruins are working on something like a substantial trade, but we don't know what it is. There's a lot of belief, though, that Bergeron and Krejci will return and that they're both going to retire. So certainly adding another centerman makes a ton of sense. I believe that the Bruins are high on a player like Mark Scheifele, and that could be their target in Winnipeg. Wouldn't be shocking if they also, or as the Jets, whether it's the Scheifele deal or another one, if they do include a young defenseman like Billy Heinola. He's another player that's kind of been wanting a fresh start to go to another organization. So we'll see how things work out. I mean, I have to think if the Bruins make a deal for a player like Scheifele, given their very limited amount of salary cap space, that they would have to include a player either like a Taylor Hall or a Jake DeBrusk, or one of their wingers is likely going to have to move. I know the Jets are going to need forwards. They probably wouldn't mind beefing up their blue line too, but considering that everybody that's wanting out right now are forwards, I would think that they'd be more interested in adding to the forward group first, and they'll probably address the blue line through different means, I would think. I mean, obviously we know our former captain Blake Wheeler's days are likely numbered. Could he even go with Scheifele to Boston? You never know. He did play there before, so where he played early in his career. If they can get him on 50% retention, maybe there's a deal to be made there. Hard to say how things play out. As I mentioned, I wouldn't be shocked if Wheeler ended up in Florida as well. That's a real possibility, but it's going to boil down if they do a buyout or a trade with Wheeler. I think the Jets would probably prefer to do a trade and have him off their cap after one season, not two, because the buyout will be extended longer, but we'll see. The Bruins are heavily rumored now, and it sounds like Scheifele might be one of their targets. We'll see if they can get something worked out. Of course, we saw the Nashville Predators also make a trade today, moving a longtime centerman, Ryan Johansson. It was there for 7.5 years after being traded there from Columbus for Seth Jones a long time ago. Of course, he now goes over to the Avalanche with 50% of his salary retained. And, of course, that creates a lot more salary cap space for Nashville. The draft is in Nashville later this week. And maybe the home team is kind of gearing up to do something big and substantial. You never know. It's believed that Barry Trotz is very much open to doing a lot of different things. They have been one of the teams that have been linked to Alex Debrincat in Ottawa. Could we see that type of deal? Maybe, I know Ottawa was rumored they want a goalie. That's not a rumor. They definitely want a goalie. I wonder if there's anybody that can get their hands on UC Saros. If not, you're looking at a forward like maybe a Luke Evangelista or something like that. That would probably have to be a target, maybe a first rounder. Something along those lines would be involved from the Nashville side, but I wonder if the home crowd here is going to be expecting a big splash from the Preds at the draft, and maybe Debrincat could be that guy. If not, I do expect Barry Trotz to be busy. That much we do know, so we'll have to see where things go on that front. But a couple of teams creating some cap space today. You have to say there's intentions involved with what they're planning to do with it, and we'll see as the time plays out here what that works out to be. So hopefully we get word on this blockbuster deal between the Flyers and Blues in the near future. Stay tuned for a video coming as soon as we know more on that news. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.